friends, welcome back. Today I am going to start the new module, module 7. The title of this module is group behavior. In this module I am going to talk about the different patterns of behavior that can be experienced and perceived in any group situation or in any team. In this unit we will talk about some different patterns of behavior that evolve when people work in group. Definitely there is more conflict, sometimes members become more close to each other, that leads to more cohesiveness. If there is conflict, then the leader has to find ways to resolve the conflict, how groups are formed, different kinds of groups. There are theoretical assumptions that why people join groups and how the group functions, and even a process that how the group is structured. So, before getting into the more detail of this unit, I will start with the first slide of introducing the groups and defining the term group. So, the term group was first of all was defined by Kurt Lewin and stated a normative view about group dynamics. About group dynamics means that what kind of process evolve in any group. It can be about cooperation, it can be conflict, it can be competition, it can be in terms of proximity, it can be in terms of interpersonal relationship, it can be in terms of decision making. So, Kurt Lewin introduced the term group dynamics and he has gave a very normative view about group dynamics, which describes that how groups are formed, they are structured, how the group process and how they function and affect individual member and other group members and the organization. So, whenever two or more than two people come together for a common purpose, it is not only that they are there to meet a common purpose, their own behavior of an individual will impact the group behavior and the group behavior also impacts the overall organizational performance. So, group is a very important entity when we talk about organizational behavior. Coming to this discussion, let us first define that what is a group. So, group refers to a collection of two or more interacting individuals who maintain stable patterns of relationship, share common goals and perceive themselves as being a group. Being an individual is a different thing, but when we are in a group, we will never say that I, it is always about we. Two or more than two people will perceive them as we, as a group. So, the study of groups is useful in understanding different kind of process in terms of decision making, behavior, attitudes, interpersonal relationships, beliefs, opinions, discrimination, communication, perceptions and attributions. Perceiving the whole process, perceiving the other members of the group, we tend to become stereotyped, we tend to discriminate, we tend to become very biased with one particular member and not with the other member. So, this influences decision making process. So, we can say that the study of group emphasizes democratic leadership, member participation and overall cooperation. It can also be about competition, but it can be about overall cooperation. It encompasses various group processes such as interpersonal attraction, social relationships, conflict resolution, communication, conformity, deviance and group therapy. Now, here group therapy is a very novel term that we come across on this slide, that people who have psychological problems tend to share their problems with the group and how group members tend to share their problems, and when there is interaction in sharing problems, people find solutions to their problems personally. This becomes therapeutic to one individual or the other members of the group. So, group is a very broad term which entails a process to become into a system or transform into a system, and within that system involves different kind of good and bad process. For example, competition, conflict, communication, or it can be deviance, that people will be distracted from the common goal and they would start thinking about their own personal interest. It can be about communication, it can be about conflict resolution, it can be about social relationships, it can be about interpersonal attraction, that maybe one member is attracted to the other person more in comparison to the other members. So, this influences the whole process of the group. So, we can say that when two or more than two people come together with common objectives who are stimulating to each other, that means they are motivating and they are triggering more force in the group process, have common loyalty, participate in common activities and as a common recognized structure can be defined as a group. Now, here structure is that there are certain rules, regulations, some norms that how the group will function. what kind of roles will be assigned to what individual, and that creates a structure group in any organization. So, we can say that a group refers to an organized system of two or more people who have a common meaning and evaluation of themselves and come together to achieve a common goal. Now, the point is that even the members have a common goal, but when it comes to interacting with the other members, this creates lot of hurdles, lot of problems, and at the same time it brings in more solutions from each other to cross those hurdles and reach the common goal. So, first important question to ask each other is that why do we join groups? Why people join groups? There has to be some reason. So, the first is security. Every human being, he or she is a social animal. They want to have some kind of psychological safety and security to protect themselves from the external threat, and they want to have that support and protection from external threats and dangers. So, by joining groups, individuals can reduce the insecurity of standing alone and form stable relationships that keep members functioning. That means there is a sense of belongingness among members and that keep them functioning. Status. Inclusion in a group that is viewed as important provides recognition and status for its members and provide people with the feeling of self-worth. So, becoming the member of any successful group who has a success history where there is more opportunity to learn and achieve higher goals, that is why a person tends to join a particular group, because it adds status, it adds to an individual's self-esteem and self-worth. Affiliation. In order to fulfill the social needs and satisfy the sense of belongingness, any individual would prefer to join any group, because there is sense of affiliation, there is a sense of maintaining satisfying relationships and security. Power. What cannot be achieved individually often becomes possible through group action. So, there is power in numbers. So, when an individual takes on the task, maybe he will find lot of difficulty in finding resources in terms of knowledge, skills and abilities to achieve the task. But as soon as he tend to join a group where he will find people with different knowledge, skills and abilities, that helps him to achieve the goal. So, to gain that power, an individual will always have a desire to become the part of that group. And the last reason is goal achievement. So, when it takes more than one person to accomplish a particular task, there is need to pool talents, knowledge or power in order to complete a job. In such cases, management will rely on formal groups. So, here when we talk about goal achievement, then definitely it is about from the organization point of view, that whenever the organization sets a higher goal, there requires every expertise from every area of functioning, and how authorities tend to pool all the talents and tend to form a new group to create something new or resolve any problem. So, this is the formalization structure of the group, which is established or created by some authorities. So, that is why people join groups, because there is security, there is status, there is affiliation, there is power and there is a sense of goal achievement. Next comes that why people join groups. In order to understand the question why, 4 theoretical assumptions have been laid down to understand in order that why people join groups. 4 theories on the screen are one of the most famous and most discussed theories to explain that why people join groups. The first is Propinquity theory, exchange theory, balance theory and Homan's theory. So, Propinquity theory. This theory emphasizes that individuals affiliate with one another because of spatial and geographical location. It is so obvious to understand that when we are working in any organization, so we have our own spaces, and when we are very close to our co-workers in terms of space, we tend to get more chance to interact with them, because spatially we are close to each other, and this leads to formation of groups and we have more chance to interact with each other. So, based on interaction, people join group because people are sitting close to each other and they are very much in sync to interact with each other in a very frequent manner, that leads to satisfy the need to join any group. The other is exchange theory. This theory is based on reward cost outcomes of interactions. So, that is rewards from interactions. When we interact with any member of the group, there is some kind of gain we experience while interaction. Maybe it can be in form of solution to any problem or enhancement of knowledge or conflict resolution. So, there is some kind of gain, but if there is no interaction, then it leads to anxiety. As I mentioned earlier, that every human being is a social animal, be it workplace or any non-work domain. We have a desire to interact with the other person, if not it leads to anxiety and frustration. Therefore, propinquity, interaction and common attitudes all have a significant role in exchange theory. So, when we exchange ideas, maybe we are close proximally, physically or geographically close to each other, and we have some similarity in the thought process, in the attitude, then ultimately there is some kind of exchange that gives not only solution to the problem, but also a sense of satisfaction. So, exchange theory is another reason that why people want to join group. The other is balance theory. So, balance theory was developed by Theodore Newcomb and stated that people are attracted to one another because of similarity between their attitudes and commonly relevant objectives and goals. So, if two or more than people have common attitudes and they have common goal, so they are attracted to each other. So, when they are interacting with each other, they tend to establish a relationship because of this commonality of the goals, and this leads to maintain a symmetrical balance. So, this is very obvious. For example, if we go to the diagram on this slide, that x and y are attracted to each other because they have common attitude and goal, and because of common attitudes, goals and values, that is z. Z is common goal and values. So, x and y are interacting with each other because they have common goal, that is z, and that tends to establish a relationship. Now, as soon as the common goal and attitudes are identified between two or more than two people, they tend to maintain a symmetrical balance between, and there is attraction. And definitely, due to any reason, if imbalance occurs, then members tend to make efforts to restore that balance, because it is very difficult to leave that group or disband that group because of certain commonality, and at the same time they do not want to disband that group. So, members, all the members will put in all the efforts to restore that balance, that symmetry, in order to achieve the common goal. So, this is the reason the balance theory has explained commonality as a reason that why people join groups. And the last is Homan's theory. This theory was developed by George Homan, and according to Homan, a more comprehensive theory of group formation comes from the theory based on activities, interactions and sentiments. So, there is interplay between these three factors: activities, interactions and sentiments. So, these three elements are related to one another. Why? There is a reason that the more are the activities, more will be the interactions, and the more the interactions are there, so the sentiments also become stronger. Why? Because there is sense of connection, there is sense of interrelationship among people, and people do not want to disband or break those relationships. So, the major element is interaction as a person with one another in physical propinquity, but also to accomplish group goals such as cooperation and problem solving. So, the purpose is that when interactions, activities and sentiments are working in sync, it is actually leading to cooperation and problem solving. So, some objective has been achieved in terms of problem solving, in terms of enhanced interactions and relationships, and more proximity is being maintained. So, these factors when are working in sync, then it leads to an urge, a desire to join any group. So, the four theories, that is propinquity theory based on physical or spatial geographical location, exchange theory, balance theory and Homan's theory. These four theoretical assumptions have clearly explained in detail that why people join groups. So, it is about geographical proximity, it is about the reward cost outcome of interactions, it is about balance between individual attitudes and goals, and interaction between activities, sentiments and interpersonal relationship, right. So, these are the four theories which explains that why people join groups. All right. Next comes stages of group development. There are number of theories which explain how a group develop, but ultimately every theoretical assumption, every model will explain the process, that how a group develops. It is not only about common goal and people come together. The whole group, which is very much unstructured, becomes structured in its own way when members go through a process. So, there are different kind of models that have been proposed to explain that how group development takes place. So, the most common stages of group development was given by Bruce Tuckman and Jensen's vision of group development, where they have described some stages, 5 stages of group development, that is forming, storming, norming, performing and adjourning. It is like that. Stage 1 forming, stage 2 storming, stage 3 norming, stage 4 performing and stage 5 as adjourning. So, when we talk about the first stage forming, so members have come together, they are well acquainted, they know each other very superficially, there are no ground rules based on mutual interaction. So, it is in a very raw state, it is a just nursery or infancy stage of any group development. No doubt people are there for some common purpose, there is lot of excitement and enthusiasm, but at the same time the members also experience fear and anxiety that how members will respond to them or members will respond to each other and how the group will function in future. So, this is the feature of the first stage, that is forming. As soon as a group is formed, it leads to another stage, that is storming. So, members tend to communicate their feelings, ideas and visions to each other. They also tend to consider themselves not as part of the group because they have their own idea, they have their own norms how to function. They consider themselves to be at par in comparison to the other members. So, in order to prove themselves more superior to in comparison to the other, they sometimes tend to resist the leader and they are more hostile towards the other members of the group, because there is some kind of resistance to accept the leadership. So, there is lot of disturbance in the second stage of group development, that is storming. The other is norming. People feel part of the group and realize that they can achieve the goal if they accept other viewpoints and norms regarding group functionality. Now, the point is, if the group tends to settle or normalize or accept the leadership in the second stage, then only the group will move to the third stage, that is norming. Else, this is the only stage when the group ceases to exist in the second stage itself. But if they accept the leadership, definitely they move towards the third stage, that is the norming, where the members tend to accept the leadership, they tend to accept the norms that how the group will be structured and function, and at the same time the group becomes functional because members accept the group structure in its own way based on the roles, based on the norms. As soon as the norming stage is over, the group becomes very much well acquainted with the norms, well acquainted with the rules, well acquainted with their roles, with their jobs, and they reach the performing stage. So, the group when reaches this stage, there is a trusting environment, there is more flexibility, there is reduced hierarchy, and people tend to accept and respect the leadership and the significance of leadership, that how the group will become highly functional. So, forming, storming, norming, performing will ultimately make the group highly functional. Now, the point is that after performing and achieving the goal, an assessment of the goals is also being made. So, whether the group ceases to exist or the existence will be continued. This will be depending on the group's goals, whether they extend their group goal or they tend to disband. So, as soon as the performing stage is over, the members tend to reach the adjourning stage, where the group conducts an assessment and recognize the members' contribution, and once the group goal is achieved, the group tends to disband or members tend to retain the membership, formulate another goals and tend to function again. So, this is how the group develops based on a process, that is forming, storming, norming, performing and adjourning. But yes, the most important aspect to be discussed about group development is that if the group in the second stage fails to overcome the conflict, resolve the conflict or accept the leadership, then it becomes difficult at this stage only that the group will tend to exist and the group dissolves or disbands, else definitely the group reaches the stage of adjourning. This is the most common theoretical assumption of group development. The next is Tubbs system model. This model has its applicability in small projects where the team is very small and how members function all together in a very collaborative manner. So, when we talk about this model, that is Tubbs system model, it is a group development from a systems perspective, and it proposes three basic processes: the input, output and throughput and through the feedback as well. So, according to this kind of model, that is TUP systems model, there is three basic processes: the inputs, the outputs and throughputs of the groups, and each of these three processes allow a group to change based on the events that take place. So, every time there is a stage, every time there are certain feedback, input and output and throughputs, and the group evolves with a new thought process. So, in TUP system there is a feedback mechanism connecting every point within each process, and this feedback allows the group to change based on desired performance outcome. So, there is chance of changes in the functions of the group based on the feedback. So, this is the pictorial representation of the TUP system model of group development, which is specifically applicable for small projects, where the first stage is the orientation, where members tend to get to know each other and they start to talk about the problem and accordingly act on it. Group is already there, it is established, but how to orient every group member based on the problem, that is the function of the first stage, that is orientation. The members tend to discuss the problem and finding out ways for the solution of the problem or the idea. Now, once the orientation stage is over, the group moves to the another stage, that is conflict. So, this allows the group to evaluate ideas, suggestion and help the group to think. Now, the point is that when the conflict also arises, then members tend to participate, evaluate the ideas and suggestions and help the group to think. So, here members are not having any intention to leave the group, but they have a more desire to resolve the conflict and move on to become more functional. Once the conflicts are resolved, it leads to consensus. So, this is the stage when the conflict ends, people accept the solutions, they even compromise. So, it is not that the members are in the withdrawal mode, they compromise by giving up their own interest and including while being more inclusive of the other ideas and select idea and agree to the other members of the group. So, this is the third stage, consensus. Now, if we compare with the Tuckman's and Jensen's model, it has a different orientation. So, in consensus there is compromise and there is no sense of withdrawal in any of the three stages. Once consensus has been achieved, it leads to a closure stage, that is the final result or decision is being announced and group member reaffirm and end the project. So, here that at the consensus state, the members tend to become functional also while being compromising and inclusive, and reaches the closure stage where assessment is being made, where decision whether the group goal has been achieved or not, and it is being reaffirmed and the group tends to disband, or maybe the project will disband, maybe the group will continue to exist, but maybe with the next role. So, this is how TUP system model of group development functions. The only significance of this kind of TUP system is based on its application that we are discussing right now. It is that TUP system is very much applicable for developing any small group for any small project. So, this is the significance of TUP system model of group development. Alright. The next is punctuated-equilibrium model. This was developed by Gersick in the year 1988 and revised in 1989, and Gersick theorized that group development is similarly characterized by periods of punctuated equilibrium. That means, when the group becomes very functional right from the first stage and the group is functional, there comes a stage in the middle of group functioning when they realize their mistakes and tend to refurbish or review their plan and strategies and again emerge as a new group. So, it is a very complicated group where the group starts functioning from the first stage and tend to revise, refurbish their strategies and functions in the middle of the group when the group is functional. So, this approach to group formation recognizes that group members working to meet a deadline approach their task differently in the first half of their time together than in the second half. So, they have a different strategy in the first stage till they reach the middle stage of the group development, and then they develop a different strategy when they cross the first half of the group development or the functioning of the group. So, there is a different orientation that how the group develops. So, group will develop in two phases. The first phase where they have a very different orientation, and in the second phase again they will have a different strategy to reach the common goal. So, during the first half of the time, that is the phase 1, groups define their task, set a mission which they are not ready to change because they are very much are affirmed about the group goal, and as soon as the group reaches the midpoint of their lives, something curious happens. So, I will just take you to this diagram where the group has plans and they reach the middle point of the group functioning, where they realize that they have made certain mistakes and maybe they have to revise their plan. Till that time they have their own plan following, and as soon as they experience some kind of hurdle, obstruction in the group functioning, they tend to revise. So, that means the first phase will be continued till they reach the half stage or till the point where they will experience some kind of flaw or error in the functioning. So, as soon as they reach the midpoint of their lives, there comes the hurdle and they are more curious and have a highest desire to change that strategy in order to achieve the final goal. So, at the midpoint of their lives, they reach the midlife crisis actually, which is the midlife crisis of the group, and they tend to recognize that they are going to have to change the way they operate if they are going to meet their goals. So, at that midpoint, they will revise, they will refurbish, they will reaffirm their goals in order to reach the final goal. So, there is another redevelopment will take place where all the roles will also alter and the functioning of the goal will also alter. This is how that period of equilibrium, that is the first stage where the group has a plan, and till the midpoint they will make the change. So, beginning of the group discussion is there and the halfway to deadline. Now, as soon as the midlife crisis has been experienced, there is a point when the plan will be changed, functions will change, responsibilities will change, allocation of the resources will also change, and there will be another phase that will be continued, and that phase will lead to the existence of the group. So, this is the time when groups drop old ways of thinking and adopt new perspectives. So, group carry their visions until they reach the end of the phase 2, when they show burst of activities needed to complete their work. So, as soon as the alterations has been made and accepted by the group members, they move to the second stage where they have already made the final changes and tend to reach the goal, that is the deadline. So, thus according to the punctuated equilibrium model, groups go through two stages marked by the midpoint of the group's time together. The first phase or the first half is a period of equilibrium. Why period of equilibrium? Because there is complete acceptance of the plan that how the group will achieve the goal. There is consensus among the members until they reach the midlife crisis. But as soon as they meet the midlife crisis and dropping old ways and adopting another new ways, the group members make changes that lead them to accomplish the group task as the deadline approaches. So, the point is that group will develop in two phases. In the first phase, it is equilibrium where there is lot of consensus, and when they reach the midlife crisis, definitely there is fear, there is anxiety, there is frustration, there is sometimes conflict among members also about the resources and how to go about in the next stage. So, as soon as the next stage is being started, the alterations will revive the group functionality in another stance, and there is another level of development of the group. So, this is how a group tends to develop. So, that is why it is termed as punctuated equilibrium model. Punctuated means some kind of crisis or halt or stop will be experienced because of some mistake, some crisis, and then again equilibrium will be maintained in the second phase. So, this is how a group develops and functions based on this model. So, according to these three stages, theoretical aspects for explaining stages of group development is Tuckman and Jensen's model, which has described 5 stages: forming, storming, norming, performing and adjourning. Then we have Tubbs system model, which is applicable for small projects, that is orientation, conflict, consensus and closure. And the other is punctuated equilibrium model, which has more novelty in group functioning, and it is based on that how equilibrium is maintained in 2 phases and finally makes the group functional to achieve the common goal, right. So, this is about group development. We will continue to discuss more about the same in the next session. Thank you so much.